AllReasonNoLogic. G'day friends and welcome to a 8 vs 8 cast on our favourite RTS Beyond All Reason. I'm Twig and joined by AllReasonNoLogic's Pradith and Tank Tom. We have 16 players here showcasing their skills, or in some instances lack of, but that's okay, we are here for fun. We have a reasonably full spectrum of players where everyone is somewhat experienced, but there are players who know the game like the back of the hand and a few that might still be finding their footing. Will the pros carry this game, or are we going to see some surprising moves? Let's find out.
Leading the blue team for this community submitted replay, we have MV Pete playing as Cortex. He is playing as Armada. He is a OS 39 and leading a team that ranges all the way down to OS 12. Leading the red team is Zillion, who is an OS 40, and he is OS 40 playing as Cortex and leading a team that runs itself all the way down to OS 30. Now playing on Sector 318C, which is a typical lanes 8v8 map, and we will see exactly just how these lanes go. Winning your lane means spilling an advantage into and hopefully circumventing the defenses of another lane, and we'll see whether or not that can come about.
Some interesting moves down south. We see Zillion, I won't say the first part of that name, but you certainly can read it if you like. Going forward without building any lab or wind, just getting those higher income mexes of 3 and a couple of 1.8 up, and then going into some solos.
Coming out from the blue side.
Unfortunately for Zillion, it looks like he's getting scouted doing this, which means that if the opposing blue player is smart about it, he should be able to sneak on through and get those back mexes, and it looks like that's exactly what's about to happen.
Also got some ticks going through for green on the maroon player and taking out 2 mexes, but back down at blue, our teal player taking out those mexes.
Losing those 3.0s is going to be a big deal, and it just based on where units are, looks like both will be taken. So even though getting those 2 extra 1.8s might have seemed like a good idea, maybe not. But jumping up to the top part of the map, we see ticks slamming on in from the purple player into the light yellow. There is no defense, and there is no defense incoming, so these ticks are going to have free reign. The only thing that's going to kill them is being too close to things when they explode.
That's some massive damage done by just, I think it's like less than 100 metal worth of ticks.
I would call this a complete reset for the yellow player.
Yeah, there's still some stuff that can be rezzed, but that's going to take a while to get back going again. And that tick making it up the hill to that extra mex as well, so 4 mexes are going to go down from that engagement.
We also have a big group of ticks jumping on down and continuing to harass Zillion, so all of those mexes quite well taken out. Zillion's risky play has not paid off.
Yeah,
the energy that he's got, that LLT seems to be struggling to fire.
The air players of both teams sending out scouts, the blue teams first, and getting a full view of the opposing team, whereas the pink air player a little bit later of an air scout and only seeing the south half of the map, so not picking up those higher OS players we've got in the north.
Yellow getting a good little group of ticks behind the enemy bases, did a little bit of damage to the teal player, but has just shut down one of the constructors and a mex for the light green player, now getting chased away by some blitzers. But now up front, looks like we have some engagements going on in the middle between the pink and the light blue player, both trying to get LLTs up to fight one another, with the pink player definitely getting his first, and the blue player trying to get in for those D-guns. Can the pink player stop the LLT? No, he cannot, and it looks like we're going to have a comm going down as the pink player thinks he has enough HP to survive the explosion. I don't think he does.
You know what amount you need? I don't actually know what amount is needed to survive the comm explosion. It's probably got to do with distance as well.
Definitely more than 50%.
Got a
looks like we have
drop on a Centurion.
Centurion drop. Unfortunately, there is quite a lot of pawns in the area, and they should be enough to take it down, provided they get the surround bonus, which they definitely do. So that is going to be one dead Centurion, and losing only 2 pawns for it is a cheap trade. We have a group of ticks trying to run into the light blue base, but they get shut down by the LLT. But right now, looking up at the very top lane, the light yellow player that got shut down early is now having to fight through Centurions and Maces with only a comm and a couple of pawns, which is not going to be a winning fight. So that top lane is definitely falling and may spill out into other lanes.
As the cream player falls, we've got the mexes, sorry, not the mexes, the commander medal area under control from our light blue player. But no resurrection bots there to suck up that medal, and now the pink player coming back, so potentially an opportunity lost there for the blue team, with only 9 metal coming in right now from Hugs. If we had a little bit more metal coming in from Reclaim, we would see a definite advantage there in that lane.
Just had a self-detonation of a comm in the light purple base, getting that extra metal for an air lab transition. But looking in the bottom section of the map, it looks like we've got a large set of orange ticks that are going to try and break their way through into the blue lines. And we also have the green comm in the middle of the map trying to secure some of that reclaim. Hopefully they get some of that done, but the ticks are now powering on through into the light green base.
Shuriken doing their job, shutting some of these down, but not quite doing enough, and those ticks potentially are going to take out this slab.
Shuriken's great at countering units by stunning them, but you need to have as many shurikens as there are units or near that many. Otherwise you end up in a situation like this where there was just an overcrowding of ticks.
One thing you can do, so if there's a fight command used, if you've got a bunch of shuriken, they will lock onto one unit and stay on it. If you use the attack and drag command and drag a circle like that, they will actually cycle through the units.
Good to know. Jumping back to the middle of the map, it looks like the green player has completely broken through maroon and has now got a lane, or an uncontested lane with which to push in with. So we have, from a zoomed out perspective, we have purple and blue pushing strongly into the cream player and green pushing strongly into the maroon player. Run by going straight into yellow's base, those 3 Centurions are going to do massive damage. And this is what happens when a lane falls next to yours. You are not prepared to defend, and this is where we see some difference between higher and lower OS players, with higher OS players tending to be able to deal with this better, but in this case not quite there.
Ticks have run by into the air player for the blue team, the orange ticks, trying to return some favour that's being done, but not quite enough is going to be done, I don't think, with
there's no defenses. There's no possible defenses because he's eaten his other lab and he's building a T2 lab.
There you go.
So yeah, it's got to be, Reclaim gets it, but that's still a lot of damage for a couple of ticks.
Looking at the top of the map, we've got Mateko. I don't know, that must be a silent J. If not, I cannot pronounce that. An MVP pushing right into the cream base. Bugs coming out, but a little bit too late, and they've met their match with the Centurions and the Mace. The Mace is the equivalent of the Thug. Not quite as good as the Thug in my opinion, but close to it.
Fallen lane doesn't necessarily mean the game is won or lost, but it certainly means that you can add an extra player's, or in this case 2 players worth of damage to another lane. So we're going to be relying on Zillion to do damage in the bottom section of the map to try and even this out. He has nearly won his lane, but he is lock ahead. MV Pete getting a large pawn run by on the, I guess, brown player. Absolutely ravaging that eco, and that's now essentially 2 players that have been heavily damaged or destroyed.
And that light yellow commander still on the run, looking for somewhere safe to restart again.
Front lines getting that Geo up could possibly get him back in the game. We have a resign.
Looking at an overview of the map, you can really see there's 5 players starting in the top half of the map with the blue team and the bottom half of the red team. So it is really like a yin-yang. You do see kind of a fight like that in these uneven matches. These uneven starts, I should say. What's the word? Counter-symmetrical? You'd not, Radith.
Asymmetrical. Oh, it's not really asymmetrical, but it's diagonally symmetrical.
And as a result, yeah, it's a bit of a race. Will the top win or the bottom win? And then you can see here in this case, I mean, there was a very strong push in the middle. But the bottom for the red team definitely winning, but just not quite fast enough, with all other 5 lanes essentially lost by the red team and won by the blue team.
Definitely having that top section now completely cleared up. It's just a comm left to be taken out. There was a resign vote, but the red team still feel like they're strong enough in this bottom section to win.
At this stage, I think it's a little bit stubborn when you get 7 people being in this little triangle on the map. But what were you going to say? You disagree?
I disagree with the early call, because there certainly is still a fight going on down the bottom. If Red was to grab all of his forces, or if he had grabbed all of his forces about a minute ago, he would have had enough to push into the blue team, but he's had to have them spread out to defend. Again, this is what we talk about with lanes falling. So by this stage, I definitely think that the blue players have this one in hand, but the red players could pull something off as a bit of a while we're in between dramatic moments. What if you were in the red or the orange player's position? What would you do to try and turn this game around?
I'd probably, with the commander from the red player, try and take out that blue enemy with the Control D function. Take out that army and hope for a push through. I mean, Zillion might not see those. Yeah, he doesn't see that there's beamers there, so it wouldn't work. But if I was that player, I wouldn't be able to see that either. So I'd probably that Control D, take out that army and try and get the push through, and then the run along the back of the map. And then if I was the orange player, I got no answer for this really.
Yeah, it looks like they could also be an option through that light green player as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, having to spread your forces is what's doing in the red player. Me, I would, if I was the orange player, I would put up some static defenses to try and hold this choke, and then I would move into an air transition. And I would hope that because of the nature of the top lane winning so hard, I would hope that there's no defenses whatsoever over there, and see if I can't do massive damage with a medium-sized air push. Hard to get it across the map without being spotted, but depending on the reaction times, depending on where the builders are, you may well be able to push on in pink, taking heavy damage just now, losing that comm and losing the rest of his base to purple's units.
And the Marine commander looking like he'll lose that commander, and as he does, taking out a little bit of his own base. Probably would have liked to see it punch into those units. And I don't like to see that, just Control D'ing all this stuff at this stage of the game.
I don't mind the Control D on the things on the front line.
So that you don't get the mechs? Yeah, the metal, sorry?
So, yeah. But Control D'ing them when there are hounds nearby to take damage, I think that's a bit of a waste. But with units coming into the back line, this game is... I would essentially call this game at this point. There is no recovery available for the red players. For the red team. With another comm down, they are down to just 2, and one of them is taking heavy damage right now. And he is letting it happen, I believe, because they know that the game is essentially up. So just the one...
Sorry, keep going.
Just the one left, but the player controlling it has quit, so that is all comms down and a victory for the blue team.
I think the difference in this game was really, I mean, everyone was holding their line, but blue, you could see a little bit more was jumping to their neighbours' battles where they were maybe deficient. And also, of course, those early raids definitely hurt the red lane. That lane where the game can be won or lost on this map.
Yeah, the early damage up in that top corner meant that the top just could not hold against the combined might of purple and blue. And that just shows off the extreme advantages you can gain by crippling your opponent with just a couple of ticks, getting that scout in and then making a good call with them in order to do damage. it's what you've got to do, and moving your comm out early can be such a dangerous move in this. You got to find the right balance between ability to defend yourself and expanding fast enough that you don't fall behind.
That's it. Quick skim through the statistics. You can see the blue team has a lot more lines across the eco and damage dealt. Obviously some standout players there, a bit more eco from the orange player, but then the next 4 are on the blue team, and eco essentially wins those games that go for a little bit longer. We hope you all like this one. Remember to like and subscribe. We really do appreciate it. It motivates us to keep producing this content. And also, if you'd like to drop us a replay, there is a link to our Discord in the description below, and a tab in our Discord where you can drop your replays from this game.
Thanks for joining us, and catch you next time.
See you around.